The letter arrived on a Wednesday morning, tucked into my mailbox like a snake waiting to strike. I knew it was from the HOA the moment I saw the return address in that smug serif font. I poured myself a cup of coffee before opening it, because I'd learned long ago you never face one of their letters on an empty stomach. The letter was short, clinical, and absurd. They were fining me for owning too much water. Those were the exact words. Apparently, my pond, which had been on this property long before the HOA was even a whisper in some committee member's head, was now considered excessive usage of community water resources. I read it 3 times, then laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. It wasn't the first time they'd come after me. First, it was the color of my mailbox, too rustic. Then it was the fence, too weathered. After that, they didn't like my old Chevy truck parked in the driveway because it wasn't aesthetically harmonious. But finding me for water? For a pond fed by the same creek that had run through these hills for 100 years? That was new even for them. The real culprit was obvious. Her name was Lorraine, the self-appointed queen bee of the HOA board. She lived 3 houses down in a McMansion that gleamed like a showpiece, and she treated every committee meeting like her coronation. She never liked me much, maybe because I wasn't one of her yes men, or maybe because I didn't mow my lawn twice a week with military precision. Either way, she had her claws out, and my pond had become the latest excuse. I didn't pay the fine. Instead, I wrote back a polite letter explaining the pond was natural, legally mine, and older than the HOA itself. A week later, another letter arrived. The fine had doubled. A week after that, it tripled. By the end of the month, they were threatening liens and legal action, all because of water I hadn't bought, bottled, or stolen. It flowed downhill, pooled in a basin, and had done so since before my grandfather bought this land. That's when I realized this wasn't about water. It was about control. I went for a long walk along the pond that evening, the air heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth. The sun was setting low, painting the surface of the water gold. I thought of my grandfather, who used to tell me, "Land isn't something you own. It's something you care for, so it can care for you." He built the little dam at the end of the pond himself, piling stone and timber so the water would stay long enough for fish, for birds, for us kids to swim in when the summers got too hot. Standing there, listening to the water trickle, I decided I wouldn't let Lorraine, or anyone, steal that from me. The showdown came faster than I expected. Lorraine sent out glossy invitations for a grand garden party at her house, an event she claimed would demonstrate the beauty of HOA standards and practice. She decorated her backyard with tents and lanterns, laid out champagne on ice, and hired a local quartet to play Mozart under the magnolia trees. Every member of the HOA was invited. Everyone except me. But exclusion never bothered me. What did bother me was when her party coincidentally coincided with the deadline she'd given me for paying the water fine. She wanted to make an example of me, to show her guests how she bent the community to her will. The morning of the party, I took another long walk down by the dam. The creek was running high from a week of steady rain, and the pond was swollen, restless, pressing against the old stones like it had a secret to tell. I sat there, thinking, remembering all the ways Lorraine had tried to humiliate me and anyone who didn't fit her picture-perfect image of the neighborhood. And then, I'll be honest, I got an idea. A mischievous, dangerous, liberating idea. I spent the day working quietly. I made sure no harm would come downstream. Checked the creek bed, cleared debris, gave it a natural path to follow. I wasn't reckless, but I knew if I loosened the dam just enough, the water would spill with a force that couldn't be ignored. By sunset, Lorraine's garden was lit up like a wedding reception. The quartet played their violins, guests clinked glasses, and Lorraine, in her silk dress, fluttered about like a monarch surveying her court. From my back porch, I could see the glow of her lanterns, hear the laughter drifting through the warm night air. Then I walked back down to the pond. With a slow, deliberate push, I shifted the stones one by one. At first, it was just a trickle, then a gush, then a roaring surge as the pent-up water charged through the opening. It spilled down the creek bed, racing toward Lorraine's manicured lawn with all the inevitability of justice. I didn't watch right away. I sat on the dam, listening, and then I heard it, The distant shrieks, the gasps, the sudden chaos of laughter turning to panic. Later, I strolled down the road, hands in my pockets, casual as could be. By the time I reached Lorraine's backyard, her party was in full disarray. The creek had overflowed into her garden, soaking the tents, dousing the champagne, turning her manicured flower beds into mud pits. Guests were fleeing in high heels and tuxedos, their shoes ruined, their hems dripping. The quartet had abandoned their instruments on the wet grass. Lorraine herself stood in the middle of it all, her silk dress plastered to her legs, hair clinging to her face, shrieking orders no one cared to follow. I leaned on her gate and said, "Looks like you've got too much water, Lorraine. You better be careful. Someone might find you." For once, she had no reply. The HOA tried to push back, of course. They threatened lawsuits, hearings, penalties. But the truth was on my side. The pond was mine. The creek was natural. The dam was legal. And when the County Water Authority confirmed it, their entire case collapsed like wet cardboard. Lorraine lost her crown that night. Neighbors started whispering about how the HOA wasn't supposed to bully folks, how maybe the rules had gone too far. People who'd once nodded along with her now crossed the street to avoid her. As for me, I kept caring for the pond. I rebuilt the dam, stronger than before, and stocked the water with fish. That summer, kids from the neighborhood came to swim, just like I had when I was young. Families picnicked under the pines. And every time I saw the sunlight ripple across the water, I remembered my grandfather's words. Land isn't about ownership. It's about stewardship. I could have let anger consume me. I could have sought revenge for revenge's sake. But instead, I let the water speak for itself. It washed away arrogance, pride, and cruelty. It reminded everyone, Lorraine included, that nature doesn't answer to committees. In the end, that was the lesson. You can build fences, pass rules, send fines, write threats, but water will always find its way. And sometimes, if you listen closely, it carries a bit of justice in its current. And me? I sit on my porch in the evenings, watching the pond glow in the setting sun, coffee in hand, smile on my face. The world is quieter now, freer, better, and I wouldn't trade that for all the garden parties in the world.